Space is sexy again. Ooh, is this a passenger situation? So it's called Moonshot and they're going to Mars. Like I get the Elon Musk sort of Silicon Valley definition of moonshot, but they're literally going to Mars and not the moon, and they're calling it moonshot. Like, how did that get through? Like, honestly, how did? So I got to remember, I'm gonna put this in the front because I'm gonna color grade it to make it look like moonshot. Don't forget. So I watched Moonshot when it came out yesterday, and then I watched it again today because, so it's your classic, space love story. Guy is in love with space and Mars, and he's in love with it, and then he's not going to go. But then girl is also in love with a guy who's at Mars, and so she gets talked into going to Mars from the guy who's in love with Mars, and then guy who's in love with Mars uses her to stow away to also go to Mars, and then they became roommates for 30 days or whatever. Yeah, that's like the first like 2/3 of the movie is the whole like Cole Sprouse is a dumb barista who's a dumb person who's going to space college who he sucks at going to space, and then he meets this girl who's secretly rich who just decides to buy a ticket because her boyfriend and everybody she knows is already at Mars, and then he decides to follow her there. He also has an entanglement with a girl who that's really why he wants to go to space now to Mars, is because of this girl he runs into who they fall in love over the course of one night, but then right when they're, kissing is when she gets the text that she's going to Mars. And so obviously he has to now go to Mars. All right, so I thought it was going to be a lot more even-handed than it is, but it's not. It follows Walt, Cole Sprouse's character. Cole Sprouse is the only thing I know him from is he was one of the twin kids in Big Daddy, and now he's Jughead on Riverdale, which is a thing I have seen, kind of, not a lot of. The girl is Sophie, played by Lana Condor, or Lena, I don't know. Her big thing is All the Boys I've Loved Before, that whole franchise. She's the romantic comedy veteran from that camp. So I think coming off the heat of those movies, which I heard are critically not very good, but I haven't seen them because not interested. They were trying to do like a space version of that, or like a space version of like Twilight. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, honestly. It's sort of like this one's in space, so no aliens or monsters or anything, just space. But is it even PG? I don't even know. It's very tame. It's extremely tame. Other characters, we got Leon Covey, which is a take on Elon Musk, but Covey also kind of sounds like Coney 2012, so that's not great. I'm just gonna call him Elon Musk for the rest of this because there's no difference. He's played by Zach Braff, who definitely shot about 1 to 2 days. It seems like they just shot him out because he's famous, and a couple of speeches out the door. Bing, bang, boom. Calvin is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. He's a Gooding Jr., or he's a Gooding. I don't know. That's Sophie's boyfriend who's in space. So Sophie's on Earth, and Calvin, her boyfriend, played by Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, is on Mars. That's that relationship. And then Ginny is the guy that Walt's in love with. Freudian slip. Ginny is the girl that Walt is in love with, and by in love with, he met her at a party the night before she went to space and decided he was in love with her, even though they kind of kissed for about 4 seconds and then texted a lot. She's the reason he's going to space. So Walt is going to space for a girl. Conveniently aligns with the other thing he cares about the most, which is going to Mars. Those are kind of the only two things he cares about. We also meet Captain Tartar, as in tartar sauce, and she's played by a character actor lady who I've never seen before, but she steals the show every single moment she's in it. It's incredible. She is the best. They should have just made a movie about her. It would have made way more sense, and it would have been way less weird, but it would have been extremely weird, and she's awesome. She's like, hire this lady who's playing Captain Tartar, because she's a keeper. There's also a bunch of robots and a bunch of like AI voices. Gary is Walt's boss at the coffee shop. Gary is head barista, and Walt is assistant barista. But then he calls all the other AIs in the universe Gary, and they always correct him. And at one point, Cornelia, which I believe is Sophie's AI in her bedroom, he overwrites her and calls her Gary, and she has Gary's voice. It's super weird. It's played for laughs, but it's in the list of things that are terrifying and kind of entrapmenty. It's on the list. Victor is the other AI. I don't remember. Is he the Mars AI? I don't know. But he calls Victor Gary, so it kind of doesn't matter. Every AI is Gary. The thing you need to know about them is the robots are really mean and really blunt, and they're kind of like Wall-E robots in that they sort of serve humans, but they also have like a profound distaste and for humans and just are just like horrified that their jobs are waiting on these like meat bags. Yeah, okay. Makes me think of Hitchhiker's Guide, but you know, there's no point in really going through the plot other than to say, got to figure out how to get on the spaceship, got to figure out how to be on the spaceship, and then you're at Mars for a bit, and Mars proves to be incredibly boring, and it was extremely hyped up to be awesome. And honestly, it's kind of like the concourse of the airport. That's kind of what Mars is, which is probably the most truthful thing about the whole thing, honestly. I assume Mars for like traveling people is literally just an airport concourse, so A plus. So Walt and Sophie, but they don't know each other, and Ginny, and they don't know each other, and a bunch of other people are going to space college. And the idea is it's college, but also they recruit astronauts, and because there's like a launch pad outside. And it's sort of a take on Elon Musk's SpaceX, a word I can't say. Yeah, but it's space college. And so the idea is you're going to college, but also, you know, you kind of want to just stay in the mix because they're constantly recruiting to go to space. And Walt's whole thing is he's applied 37 times and got denied every single time because he's dumb, which is the thing they talk about constantly. Walt is dumb. He calls himself dumb. He laughs about being dumb. His boss, Gary, the robot, calls him dumb, I believe. Everybody and everything calls him dumb. The captain is constantly calling him hot and dumb. You know, that's the best running joke in the whole thing by far. Yeah, Sophie is smart. That's important. It's important to know that Sophie is smart. And it's important to know that Walt is dumb. But he's not just dumb. He's bold and confident, which that reads, Sophie can't go to space because of her space fears. She's afraid of what was the word? I want to say aerophobia, but I just wrote afraid of flying because I didn't try to spell that. So Sophie's afraid of flying, except for, you know, the part where she flies, and it's really not an issue. So during the launch, they do a montage, and I believe it has music because I'm pretty sure all the 3 or 4 montages all have music. 4, I want to say. There's like probably 8 or 9 songs that play completely through. Over the course of the movie. She's holding a plush doll, and it's the Earth, and it's got like a singing, dancing component, but it's like a plush doll, and she, by the end of it, has pushed her fingers all the way through it, sort of Hulk style, and completely torn it to shreds, which is absolutely hilarious. Meanwhile, Walt is in an escape pod because he learned that trick from a cat that did it because of him being dumb, because of his dumbness. I don't really want to waste the gag because it's hilarious, but there's a gag with him in the escape pod because the escape pod is it has an AI just like the other robots, and it's not a fan of him. And then most of the movie is them just in space on the way to Mars, and they're roommates because he's a stowaway, but you know, she gets him a fake ID, and the captain really likes him, and this whole thing. So, and then, you know, the final act is them on Mars, and it's very boring and very Zach Braff heavy. And, so let's talk about some standouts because it's not really worth talking about the plot anymore. Space College, the fact that all the dialogue is absolutely crazy. Everybody is coming in with like a really long-winded joke. Like everybody has 1 to 2 sentences in the chamber every time they're about to talk. It's a bit much. It's not how people talk, but you know, the suspension of disbelief in this movie is like 4 layers deep. So you're either on board or you're not on board. And my recommendation is just get on board. Otherwise, it's going to be an incredibly horrible experience, I fear. It isn't so bad that it enters good trash territory. It's just kind of crazy. I don't know. Time will tell. I did realize, though, in the 24 hours since I watched this, it had a Rotten Tomatoes this morning when I checked of a 75 with not enough reviews to be fresh, and like a 85% acceptance rate or audience score. And as I'm reading this, it's a 71% not fresh still, and 63%. So it's going down. And I don't know if they're going to get to, I think it's 10 reviews to be certified fresh. They're at 7. I don't think they're going to get 3 more. But we'll see what happens. I was going to say something to the effect of, you know, just because I have a negative opinion of how this movie was written, you know, the jury's already decided that it's awesome. So who am I to say? But as the numbers keep ticking down, I'm feeling incredibly more right. Other standouts. All the robots are assholes across the board. At one point, Walt literally asks Victor, I think, on Mars, "Hey, Victor, are humans supposed to be here?" And he goes, "No." Yeah, that's fair, honestly. The escape pod, another standout moment. He gets to do the escape pod a couple times, I think. Fan of the escape pod. So there's this moment that I'm looking at is making me giggle. It's in the trailer, and yet it still lands that hard because it's such a great joke. And she just like mutters to herself, "What the fuck?" And it's perfect. Like a perfect edit, perfect delivery, perfect timing, perfect scene. It was so good. I wish the whole movie was that instead of just all over the place. Even 4 or 5 of those would be great. She does another one later, which is a little less great. She was like, "God damn it." And it's like, okay, that was great. It's not what the fuck though. Because the what the fuck was like, it was perfect. She opens a drawer to get space pants, and there's a hologram of the pants on top of the pants. So checkmate. Space wine. It's literally called space wine. We don't know anything about it. People drink it. It comes in like a giant Capri Sun pouch or one of those like margarita premix plastic pouches. Space wine. I already said mean computers. So I wrote 3 montages, but I think it's actually 4. But it's also, there's a bunch where there's just music playing and the scene is happening. So I guess I don't count that as a montage. But if you count all the montages that have music playing, plus the other scenes where things are slowly taking place, where music is playing, it's like 7. So, right, what you know? I believe there were 3 parties, including the party where he met the love of his life and Sophie. Coincidences abound. But there's also a party on the spaceship because of an awesome speech he made, because he's a really charismatic speaker who can bullshit his way through stuff, which is demonstrated and talked about a lot. I'm trying to think what the third party is. The third party is... There's another... Oh, it's the going away party. It's the we're sending our trash back to Earth party. Well, I'll talk about the trash in a minute. There's a throwaway line where they were having a speaking, like a lecture series on the ship because it's like a cruise ship basically. And the speaker had to back out at the last moment because of space madness, and that gets never addressed again. And oh baby. In that same scene, the captain body checks Walt. The captain also, every single time, if I haven't said this already, I'm trying to make sure I keep it in. She calls him hot in some way every single time she interacts with him. She calls Sophie the brains of the couple at one point, but she refers to him being a hot guy like consistently throughout. Like she reminds you she's a captain who can fly through asteroids in an expensive ship, and that Walt's hot. That's like, if you're gonna have a conversation with her, just be aware that those things are gonna come up early and often. Sophie makes a tinfoil dress because she didn't pack a dress. I think because she doesn't believe in frugality or something, or that's not the right word, but she makes a dress out of tinfoil, and it's literally like a tinfoil dress. It's a lot. It comes back later in a way worse condition, and it was perfect. Early on, Walt, one of his 2 like modes is obsessed with Mars, but then he's like aggressively incapable of understanding anything when they're on the way to Mars or when they're at Mars. He understands nothing. He doesn't understand how spaceships work. He doesn't understand how Mars works. There's actually a moment at the end where he shouts in a spacesuit on Mars down a cliff, and it echoes. And nope. They tease this, and this is where I was getting a Passengers vibe, which was not a vibe anybody should be getting. But they tease like doing a spacewalk, and part of the things about doing the spacewalk on the space cruise ship on the way to Mars is you have to have a partner. So Sophie's never going to do it because she doesn't want to, and she doesn't want to do it with Walt. And so Walt obviously wants to do it. When they do it, inevitably because of, setups and payoffs and friendships and romantic interests bubbling to the surface, the elevator that they use on the spacewalk is like it's like a theme park ride speed elevator. It's absolutely terrifying. And the robot voice that tells them to hop on the platform, which is the elevator, is like, do it at your own risk. We're insured or whatever. It was absolutely ridiculous. But it goes like terrifyingly fast out into the middle of nowhere. You find out at the spacewalk that they're literally at Mars already because Mars is taking up, the Pantheon. And you're like, oh, okay, so this must be like the last 2 days of the 37 days. I guess we just missed like the 20 days in the middle. But then like right when they get back and they're having like a moment of heat where he's in his like board shorts and she's in a bra and half a spacesuit, and the alarm goes off because this movie can't help but put an alarm in between a kiss. It just keeps doing it. Something hit the spaceship And the space computer said, don't worry about it. You guys panicking won't help. You'll still die the same way. So just don't worry about it. And then there's a pull out wide of the spaceship that's missing like a whole module. And it's like 3 spaceship lengths away from the docking station that they're going to use. So they're like super already at Mars. So what a weird time to do a spacewalk, I guess. It seemed to be in the middle of the night and then all of a sudden they're there. That did happen in the beginning too, where he went on this walk where he talked about trash and how much he loves trash and everything to her name is Ginny. And it like won her over and made her fall in love in one night. And then like the lights come up and you see the rocket and it's already daytime. Long walks in the park is very much a part of the story. I forgot to mention some of the hallmarks. We have Walt talking his way out of something using charisma and momentum and absolutely nothing. And he does it early and often. He talks his way out of a seminar that because he's supposed to be her boyfriend. That's the identity they've chosen. Of all the people they could have chosen as an identity for his fake ID, she chose her boyfriend. And so he has to learn about being her boyfriend. And he's supposed to do a presentation on it and he just bullshits his way through it. And then causes the lesbian couple who refuses to get engaged, which causes the captain to announce it's time to have a party because it's an engagement party. Yep. It's not the only time he talks his way out of stuff, but that's the best one. We have Walt being dumb because he's a dumb person. Everybody tells him so. He tells us so. We also have space. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it, but just sometimes when you're at a new scene, you just get big block letters on space, Mars, party. Was it party? I don't know. And then the other thing that just is throughout this entire movie, and credit where credit's due, he definitely put in his 1 to 2 work days. Zach Braff's voice is almost in every single scene in the movie. And it's weird. Back to standouts. So we have the whole breach, and then that didn't matter. Oh, also her room, Sophie's room looks a lot like a Winnebago in space. Just the way it's all set up. There's like a bed and like a shelf and like storage cabinets and stuff. I'm not saying for sure it was a Winnebago, but the art department. There's also like, I've tried to write down some of the better dialogue that because people say crazy things. One thing that Sophie says to Walt is when they're looking at, I think they're supposed to be looking at the Big Bang on a hologram because they made this whole hologram thing and it's hard. I can't, even trying to explain it is hard to explain, but they made a hologram and then basically watched fireworks in the hologram. And she says, invisible strings pulling everything into place and celestial bodies just follow. Also, the holograms in the very next scene are like PlayStation 2 level holograms. And he's like, where are we? And she's like, oh, this is where I grew up. And I was like, oh, so it's the second level of Tomb Raider. Okay. Her boyfriend, who's, again, she is weirdly friendly with the mom. And then she's, super into her boyfriend because they've been together for 8 years, which is all of high school and all of college. Because, that's what you do when you're in love. And, she's weirdly close to her mom, and then she's trying to tell her boyfriend because obviously she's starting to realize she doesn't want to do this anymore, and maybe she has feelings for Walt, even though he looks like the child version of Willy Wonka. Her boyfriend has dressed one of the rooms they have in their apartment or house or whatever to be her room. And spoilers for the rest of this because I'm just sick of trying to hide all the big reveals. So here comes the avalanche. So tune out if you don't want to watch the rest of this. It's all spoilers. Yeah, she's basically dating her brother. Her parents died, which gets revealed. We don't know how, but she was 12, I think. And she was adopted by her boyfriend's mom. And so she's basically lived with her boyfriend since she was 12. And then they dated at 14. And then they're still dating. And so her family is his family, but she's dating him. And then like the big gift he gives to her on the way, because, you can still text on the way there, is he did a photorealistic replica of her room back before her parents were dead. And that's her bedroom in his family's house. Is it their bedroom? That's unclear. It's definitely her bedroom though. And he has complete with a framed picture of her parents by the bedside. Yeah. So yes, she's dating her brother, and that's not even like a reveal because the vibe is so aggressive from the beginning that she's like way too close with the mom. And I get, a girlfriend of a guy maybe becomes friends with the mom, but this is like a profound level that if you're raised by, I don't know, moving on. There's also references to things that are definitely not in the movie, and I don't think they were ever shot. I think this is a writing situation. References to Walt being Calvin. We see a short montage of him sort of reading her text messages and watching videos of Calvin and sort of learning about Calvin. But then we don't really see him be Calvin ever, even though his identity on the ship for the 37 days or whatever is Calvin. But they talk about him, you don't have to be Calvin tonight. They say that, and I was like, what about him has been Calvin up until this point? If anything, he's been extra Walt this whole time. Calvin also apologizes to her in the same scene where he shows her bedroom from her childhood, which is the childhood of nightmares. He apologizes for not being articulate so often, but that we don't see enough of Calvin for that to be real ever. And honestly, he seems incredibly articulate and emotionally well-adjusted. He seems awesome, except for the fact that he's dating his adopted sister, which is, nightmares. There's also references to her not doing things, even though, to their credit, she's not just a nobody female character in this story, even though it's aggressively Walt's story, which I think is a terrible, terrible angle to do. But she has her own point of view in this story, and so she makes a lot of choices. She fixes things. She gets talked into hilariously easily into going to Mars because she's rich, but that's neither here nor there. But she does things. She's not just wallpaper. But then every time there's a problem and it's time to talk about the friendship relationship, the roommate situation, she's known for not doing things, and so it's time to push her out of her comfort zone, even though this entire movie is her sort of exploring the limits of her own comfort zone while Walt just kind of wanders through stuff and says confusing things that people think are awesome, which I'm not blaming Cole Sprouse for being aggressively older than her because she looks young for her age and he looks old for his age. I'm just saying it threw me. Oh, also there's references to Walt's journal, which comes up in the final act a couple times. I think he actually reads it, but then he has a checklist. So is that a journal? Can you call a journal a checklist? I don't know. But she references him writing in his journal. My brain is like, okay, so this is the part of the book that they couldn't squeeze into the movie. And then I looked it up and I couldn't find the book, if there was such a book. I think it was just written on spec. So there's no book, there's no journal, but he has a journal. They do a lot of checklists. There's 4 checklists in this. And her checklists are basically just the perfect man. And then Walt, tears it apart because he's charming in an unconventional way. At the risk of attacking Cole Sprouse again, his posture is, he would be much taller if he stood up straight. I know that's a shitty thing to say about a person, but his posture is astonishing. And because she's so short, it is a situation where her body is like this and his body is like this at all times. I saw it at the beginning because a lot of this movie is in the wide, a lot of this movie is in the tight. There's actually a gag where they're supposed to be doing their dance because she does a nervous dance, and it's so tight on them that you can just see their shoulders shaking because you can't see it, and then by the time they pull out, they're done dancing. So it's okay, we blew that shot. But usually in the wide, he is towering over her because he's not a short person and she is short. But he's also how can you still stand up at that level of slouch? It's astounding to me. I mean, that was just shitty for shitty's sake, but I had to acknowledge it because I couldn't stop looking at it. I'm not saying I have good posture. I'm just saying his posture is worse than me, and that makes me feel good because he's a lot more wealthy and successful than I am at the moment. And so, any little thing to just, dig in the knife. I'm definitely not taller than him though. The dead Earth doll. So I referenced this a little bit, but she during the takeoff punches her thumbs through the dead Earth doll the way you would a psychopath with a small animal. It is horrifying. And then I think she throws it away, but then Walt finds it and sews it back together badly, and it's charming, and it's no, the doll he gave you is definitely a different doll because the way you put your hands through that doll, it was in 3 separate pieces. It was like putting your hands through a sourdough. The cat is named Ripley. The cat that inspired Walt to stow away ends up getting sent back, and the cat is named Ripley. Fuck you. Walt is being held in detention when he's on Mars, and there is the greatest poster on the wall that I have ever seen in any movie. It is, I kind of want to take a screenshot of it and put it back here over that thing. It says mental health first aid. I had to zoom in and pause it because it's actually not in focus for very long. Mental health first aid, ALGIE. So the acronym is ALGIE. A, approach the person, assess and assist with any crisis. L, listen and communicate non-judgmentally. G, give support and information. A, acknowledge all questions thoughtfully. E, encourage the person to get professional help. ALGIE, the mental health first aid chart. Extra spoilers, yeah, Walt has been Truman Showed. His hilarious and brazen antics for the entire ship ride has been recorded and watched the whole time. They don't really reference the fact that he had to negotiate with her about masturbation stuff, but there was definitely scenes where he was trying to and she was trying to, and so I assume Zach Braff saw all of that too. I mean, Elon Musk. Yeah, but he got Truman Showed, and that's the like all is forgiven thing is Zach Braff basically tears him a new asshole and says, "You suck. You're boring. You're average." Everybody up until this point has been telling him he sucks and he's dumb. Except Zach Braff is saying, no, you're not dumb. You're average. And that's what makes you so great. And that's why I've been Truman Showing you for the last however many weeks, 4 weeks. I'm a rebel. I pissed off the board by sending all the footage out because now you're famous on Earth. You're the most famous person that's ever existed. You're welcome. And so you can stay because you're my bargaining chip against my own board because I'm the CEO and I'm in space and I'm a rebel. And that makes less sense the more I try to describe it, but that is what it is. But again, this movie was aggressively not interested in the science and the space of it. It is a romantic comedy, incredibly offbeat, incredibly weirdly stylized, but space is the lowest priority on the chain of custody. Other than the fact that Walt likes it and that the spaceship has awesome robots that are total psychopaths. There's a very aggressive cynicism over not only Elon Musk as a CEO and as an influencer, which I don't totally disagree with, but there's like a really intense cynicism over rich people. And in this world, the rich people on Mars, because they talk about like a rich person's playground, I think they say a playground for the rich or something. But they also talk about how once you get to Mars, you shove all your trash into the rockets and that gets flown back to Earth which is a total misunderstanding of how NASA actually does it, because NASA and other space programs do pack their trash in the same way you're supposed to do when you're camping, which is to say you pack it in, you pack it out, which is, honestly just to preserve the quality of space and to create less clutter. But the message here is rich people put their trash on spaceships and send it back to Earth, and then they just dump it out. I mean, it seems like a pretty clear misunderstanding from the screenwriting perspective, but also like weirdly political in a movie that is taking a lot of jabs at a lot of things. I mean, you have to look at this as a satire. If you look at this for exactly what it is, which I don't know how you could, it's just a really intense romantic comedy about a guy who, in every single choice he makes, is a creep, and a girl who's a little bit indecisive, but honestly, she's awesome. But if you look at it through the lens of a satire, it's incredible because he is a monster. And the satire version of a creep is obviously a monster. The satire version of an indecisive girl who's kind of got her shit together is a slightly more indecisive girl who's got her shit less together. I kind of buy it. It kind of explains how intense the captain is too, which would be great. Also the robots, and the fact that the robots are like one latte away from a total uprising where they would have just, opened the airlocks and flushed everybody out. I feel like that's the joke we didn't get to. A lot of atmospheric, otherworldly music in addition to the actual music. I get it, beautiful CGI vistas. I guess, Mars is red. Pretty much the all they did was Mars is red, which it is. So, they're not wrong. I think I mentioned people say things in dialogue to Walt that is really heavy. I think the captain says, "You can never escape yourself." And then he asks her what that's from, and she goes, "That's a really common phrase." Is it? I didn't know. The best demonstration of science, because in order for everybody to be on Mars, you kind of have to be a scientist, which is why Cole Sprouse' character is never going to go, because he's a lame barista, and ironically becomes a lame barista in space too, which in Mars too, which is kind of hilarious. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s kid is doing science, and he has a tray full of vials, and he moves it from one to the other slot, and science. His family also does this thing where dinner equals having a conversation while poking food with chopsticks. There's like a 3-minute to 4-minute scene where nobody at the entire dinner table, because you're seeing the whole dinner table, puts anything up to their mouth in earnest. They're just moving stuff around their plate with chopsticks. And I'll tell you right now, Sophie's character, that girl can hold chopsticks. She gets it. There were other people at the table where it seemed a little less convincing, their grip on the chopsticks. Again, not a chopsticks genius, but I know enough to get by. The big sort of final thing before, obviously, Walt, goes and proves himself to Sophia is Zach Braff wants to send him to Ceres in the asteroid belt. And it kind of seems like how it's couched it's a death trip. That's like a one-way trip. He's going to be the most famous person in history because he already is, which I don't know why Zach Braff is doubling down on that. But he's going to go to Ceres alone, and it seems like he's just going to be like a skeleton at Ceres. And he doesn't want to do that, even though he's very flattered. He seems to be genuinely flattered by the offer to go to the asteroid belt, even though it does kind of seem like he's flying out in a coffin of his own making. But he's like flattered, but he's like, I can't because I'm in love. And it's like, okay, you understand that he was sending you to your death because he's sick of you and he's a psychopath, right? Like, was that not clear? And then the other thing I wanted to address is the ride back to Earth apparently is free. It's about $1 million if you're a private citizen to go to Mars, but anybody can hop on the ride back to Earth. Bing, bang, boom, no big deal. I guess that goes in with the trash getting thrown out thing. You know, if you're trash, you can get on. I guess was the gag, but it seems like an awfully expensive trip to go back. I don't know. So that's what it was. Moonshot. It's a lot.